everybody. Necromaniacs podcast is back.
Sorry for the break. Me and Mike are very busy guys. And
Yep.
we also, even though we both live in Brooklyn, and I know this has come up many times before, even though we both live in the borough of Brooklyn, we still live about a minimum of 1 hour travel time between our two apartments. So
That's true, yes. And even a little more on the public transportation. So tonight we are doing, for the first time, we're Skyping this one. And we want you guys to let us know what you think of it. If it sounds better, if it sounds the same, if it sounds worse, whatever you think, we just logistically wanted to do it this way this time. And of course, there'll be times where we'll be, right next to each other again, of course. But for tonight, we're trying it in a more modern way.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely better to do it side by side, but rather than let it go for another few more weeks, we just figured we'd try it out and use modern technology to our advantage.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, we're at just about the mid-year point with horror movies and whatnot, and one of the biggest ones this year, I think we both agree, is Robert Eggers' The Witch.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of hype around this movie too. So it was written and directed by Robert Eggers, and it's also his directorial debut.
Yes, first movie.
And in a nutshell, I guess if you were to write a byline about this,
Yeah.
I would say it's a Puritan family struggling to survive on their farm in the harsh New England wilderness, and they experience supernatural forces.
In 1630.
In the 1630s.
So 1600s. This is pre-Civil War,
Yeah, it's like way back in the day.
Way back, yes. Around, around the time of, when, there were, witch happenings going on in America, let's say.
Yeah,
It's accurate in that sense. And director Robert Eggers is from the New England area, and grew up kind of enamored by these stories, and tales of witches and things like that, and that definitely played a part in him getting this movie going.
In general, it got some really good reviews, and the movie thus far has grossed over $30 million.
Yeah, almost 40 actually, and for a budget of like $3 million, that is a huge success. It's likened, I would say, to It Follows from last year, another movie made for very little that went on to do extremely well. And I think this is going to launch Mr. Eggers' career.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So just let's give a synopsis of the film, and then we'll get into our feelings about this movie. So,
Yeah.
So it's the 1600s, the 17th century, and we find William and his wife Catherine, and they have a family. The family consists of a daughter, Thomasin, a son, Caleb, and these two twins, Mercy and Jonas, a little boy and a girl. Okay. So the family, they were banished from this Puritan settlement, and they built the farm at the edge of the
Four
forest.
kids.
What's that?
Baby. Yeah. There's 4 children and a baby. So actually, that's 5.
Oh, but actually, at the beginning of the movie, though, the baby's not yet born.
Oh, that's correct.
Yeah, so I'm just giving the existing kids before the birth. We're just going to reveal that. You know what I mean? So they start off with 4 kids, and then there's a 5th. This young, toddler pops out. Okay, so all right. So this family's banished from this Puritan settlement. So they're super Christian types, and they build this farm at the edge of the forest. And then Catherine's pregnant and give birth to their son Samuel. Okay. Now Thomasin, being the eldest, is in charge of watching over the baby. That becomes sort of her her duty while the mother recovers from the pregnancy and delivery and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So pretty soon, she's in the woods, or the kid gets kidnapped, just disappears.
Yeah, literally disappears. Like the daughter is doing like a peekaboo game. Thomasin is doing like a peekaboo game with her little baby brother. And then when she lifts her eyes from her face, the baby is gone.
Yeah. So, obviously this causes a big uproar in the family on the farm.
Yes.
And so we see the local witch has taken the baby for some.
Yeah, it's a really like, kind of creepy scene of this kind of hideous. You don't really see her that well, but you see her well enough to see that she's kind of hideous, and she's like rubbing stuff all over the baby. It's kind of a really witchy, creepy scene. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. And the fact that I think that you don't see her very clearly
Mm.
harkens back to the $3 million budget on this film too.
It actually reminded me of that Samael album cover with the baby on it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Blood Ritual, or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But there's a pretty low budget film, so they probably obscured the witch in the shadows. For two reasons. Number one, to give it sort of that, what you don't see is actually your brain forms an idea of what you think the witch looks like.
Right.
Which I love. I love that. That's like one of my favorite things about the Alien film.
I dug it. Yep.
But also, they probably didn't have a huge budget for special effects, so they used that to their advantage, I guess, in this case. Okay. So the father, William, and Caleb, the son, they head into the woods looking for young Samuel, baby Samuel. Okay. And as they're wandering through the woods, the father comes clean with his son that he traded his mother's silver cup for hunting supplies. Now, this is actually an important plot element about
it for later.
Yeah, it comes up later. That's why I'm bringing it up. There's a significance to this instance here. Oh, by the way, in case you haven't seen this movie, we're going to spoil it. So I just want to get that out in the open.
It's been out long enough that we can spoil it. Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
so if you haven't seen it by now, shame on you. And we're just going
to
to
out in mid-late February.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and spoil it. So that's the only way to really discuss this movie anyway.
I agree.
Right. So the father and son team return back to the camp fruitless, no baby. Okay. The next morning, Thomason and Caleb go into the woods with a horse and a dog, and they're searching for baby Samuel again.
We have to backtrack a tiny bit. The reason the next morning Caleb and Thomason go back into the woods is because that night they overhear, the parents talking about sending Thomason away.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is also kind of important.
Yeah.
And then late that night, early in the morning, they sneak away.
Yeah, so they're starting to build this thing where, Thomason is, you can see that she's becoming like a scapegoat. There's this sense of possible alienation from the family, that she's different, And
I mean, she's very pretty. She's the eldest. And of course, she was the baby got lost on her watch, which is also, there's some resentment.
There's definitely some resentments here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're out in the woods. Caleb and Thomason, they have a horse, and there's a dog.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're looking for baby Samuel. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that poor dog. He was pretty cute.
He's adorable.
He doesn't make it.
No, he doesn't make it. So, Catherine's guilt-tripping Thomason, telling her that she's responsible for Samuel's disappearance, blah, blah, blah. She also, this is the key part right here, accuses her of stealing her silver cup, the prized silver cup. So she's being accused of things that she hasn't done yet at this point. So
yeah, and the other thing is, prior to that, when the two kids go back in the woods, right? They get lost. The dog kind of runs ahead of them. The dog is killed. The dog
the dog chases a rabbit.
Right, chaser.
Yeah. Now,
and they're wandering further into the woods, and they come across another witch, basically disguised as a young woman.
Yeah.
And the boy kind of comes, into contact with her. And then Thomason kind of gets, thrown off the trail.
Well, actually, she gets thrown from the horse.
From the horse, right?
And she's unconscious.
Exactly. Like, a couple of things go on, and that's when, you find out basically they get back to the farm. You find out about, like, the father admits about the cup, basically.
Yeah, eventually.
Like right around this point,
But Caleb goes off alone.
Yes.
Yeah. Now Thomason wakes up from being unconscious, and then she hears her father calling, and she ends up finding her way back to the camp.
Yes.
But Caleb, this is when he encounters the witch, which is taking the form of a young woman. She's a young man. She's like naked. And of course,
she's like a hot witch, and he's a young boy. Yada yada yada.
So he's fascinated. Fascinated by her, her fertile, body, young body.
Yep.
So Thomason finds her way back to the camp, and then later that night, Caleb shows up. He's naked and sick. Okay. Mm-hmm. And of course, the mother is blaming this whole thing. She believes Caleb is sick due to witchcraft.
Yeah.
Okay. So they put him in bed. He has a series of seizures, and that's actually a pretty powerful scene. And I have to say that the young boy that plays Caleb, does a very good job.
This whole time they're speaking. By the way, it's important to note, this whole time they're speaking in what is called Jacobean English.
Yeah.
Which I think of the lesser intelligent people out there were very put off by and couldn't understand what they were saying and all that crap. I read all those type of reviews, and I'm like, really? I mean, come on.
Well, I have to be honest with you, Mike. There are times where I didn't know what the hell they were saying either. You know what I mean?
But I mean, put something. I actually watch movies like this specifically with subtitles if I can, and because I'm going deaf because of music. So I watch a lot of movies with subtitles. So it wasn't too terrible for me, but it certainly didn't take away from the quality of the movie. Like the way, what I'm saying? Like, were like, oh, this movie, it sucks. I couldn't even understand what they were saying. Like,
yeah.
When
I didn't think it sucked at all. But,
that's not enough to make up it a bad movie.
No.
But jumping ahead, I just wanted to put that in there about the language because I think it was important.
Yeah, definitely. And but you can still make out what the plot line is, even if a couple of phrases here and there slip by you. I mean, there were times when I was like, okay, what the hell is this guy trying to say? But there's enough visual cues, and it's a slow moving film, but it's still pretty compelling. Like you're still drawn into the narrative pretty easily. All right, so Caleb's having seizures. Everyone's freaking out. His mother thinks he's possessed by evil spirits, and the kid, once again, young actor, doing a great job. I think there was incredible acting by everybody in this film.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And Caleb proclaims his love for Christ, and then he dies.
He dies. Yep.
Okay, so of course this has a huge impact on the family. Okay, now we're going to take a little step back. Thomason, while watching Mercy and Jonas, the two twins, they were playing around, and Thomason kiddingly says that she's the witch. Okay, in a joking manner. Now this is kind of, we're coming up to the part of the film where this is actually significant. So when Caleb dies, Mercy and Jonas accuse Thomason of being the witch, because they were kidding around earlier.
Right, because she said it to them, because they were like being a bunch of dicks, Caleb and Jonas. And not Caleb and Jonas, Mercy and Jonas, when she was kind of watching them one time, and they wouldn't stop like singing the song about the goat Black Phillip, and she said it in jest, but they took it as very serious that she was a witch. This it scared the shit out of the girl, if I remember correctly. Mercy.
It did, yeah. But also, this is a good time to mention of Black Phillip, the goat, which is he's like kind of,
he's the black goat on their farm, who he's pretty sick looking goat. I mean, he looks like that quintessential kind of evil looking goat. Really, he looks like something from an incantation record. Basically, that's what he looks like.
Exactly.
And he plays a prominent role in the movie.
I mean, they had to have him in the film. I mean, it's like a film like this needed to have a guy like, a goat like Black Phillip in the
Yes.
movie. You know, he's like, when you think of witchcraft and, you know, Satanism, you think of
Yeah,
a goat.
but the kids earlier on say that he speaks to them at night.
Yeah.
And that in of itself is a little,
A little
what?
sketchy.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So amidst all this turmoil, you know, where Mercy and Jonas accuse Thomason of being a witch and all this other stuff, Thomason also retorts and says that the twins talked to Black Phillip.
Yes,
Okay?
right. She
Yeah.
blows up their spot. Exactly.
Yeah, so-
right after they blow up hers. Totally.
You know,
And-
so as a
Are you know, the mother is that livid, obviously.
yeah. So as a result, all three of the kids get boarded up out in the stable. That was like, you know,
But the dad's like, fuck this.
yeah, he had enough. So he throws them in the stable and boards them up in there. Okay. So at some point in the middle of the night, the kids wake up and they see this witch drinking blood of the animals that were
Like
inside.
like this really, again, a really creepy, you know, fucked up thing.
And during the same time this is going on, Catherine is having these wild hallucinations that Samuel and Caleb have returned to her. And there's another scene, which is like a scene this is probably one of the more brutal scenes of the film, where she's you know, believes she's breastfeeding Samuel, but in reality, there's this crow that's like nibbling at her titty.
Yeah, it's sick, very sick scene.
Yeah, so it's a little, you know, it's kind of brutal. It's like one of the few actual scenes in the film that's actually kind of bloody. Is that one breast scene? So the next morning, the animals are slaughtered. The twins are missing, and Thomason has blood on her hands.
Funny that I actually thought that the twins were dead, but apparently I could have sworn I thought I saw them dead in the barn, but they're not even in the barn.
Yeah, they just vanished somewhere. And Thomason has blood on her hands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is you know, curious to me. So now this is you know, everything's going to hell. Shit's getting crazy out at the farm, and you know, this is when William is gored by Black Phillip.
Yeah, the father is killed by you know, the goat just fucking kills, you know, the father.
Yeah, he just you know, turns on him, you know, charges at him and kills the father. Okay. And at this point, Catherine, the mother, is pretty much, she's at her wit's end. You know, her fragile sanity is crumbling all around her. And she tries to strangle Thomason.
Yeah, she attacks her, but then Thomason ends up killing her.
Yeah, in,
you know, self-defense.
Totally in self-defense. Okay. And then there's like, actually, this section after she kills her mother and everyone's dead or missing, there was something really intense about that scene where Thomason just sort of sits down at this table and puts her head down, and it's like, you know, what now? Like, what's the next? What's the next move after something like this? And that was, you know, to me, that was like a very interesting scene. It was kind of powerful, I thought. You know, once again, this film shot really well, so it captures this like very dreary mood. You know, very somber.
Yeah, I mean, the movie looks like beautiful. I mean, you know, if you told me it was 3 million, I would have thought it was 10 million.
Yeah.
You know?
So Thomason has a little talk with Black Phillip the goat. Okay. And,
yeah, like basically, you know, Black Phillip, you know, is revealed to be basically like Satan in the form of a man.
Yeah, like he becomes
and
a man.
I think this is a really sick scene, and like with that voice, and I just thought it was really, I don't know, I absolutely love this scene, and he has her basically sign her name in this book, you know, like the typical kind of sell your soul to the devil kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I really thought that scene was awesome.
And then she wanders out into the woods and she finds this coven of witches, and then she joins in and levitates, and that's pretty much how the movie ends.
Like all the witches are like naked, and there's like a fire, and it is just this again this awesome scene, you know, something kind of, you know, right out of like the cover of like, you know, a black metal record, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I just thought it was really cool. I felt like I hadn't seen something like that in a long time in a movie, and I really enjoyed seeing it.
Yeah, really. I don't think, at least in the modern horror genres,
Yeah,
this.
right, in the last 25, 30 years,
Yeah,
no which movie has done this kind of like level.
yeah, because a lot of the, I think of like Hammer horror films with, there's like some witchcraft in those movies, and but it's still a little bit different than this.
Yeah, yeah. This was like 100% serious in tone,
Yeah,
and I think serious in the way it,
kind of presented itself, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's no comedy, there's no tongue in cheek, there's no like. I didn't think there was like hammy overacting. I thought this was just very like, if this happened, this is exactly how it happened, kind of thing.
and this is where I have some issues with the film. Okay, and like for me, I thought that it had a very Christian viewpoint on witchcraft.
Really?
I think so. Yeah. I think it had a very, very Christian bent to the film about witchcraft and paganism and all that sort of stuff. It's almost as if this is a sort of by the numbers telling of what, the Christians would thought witchcraft was back in the 1600s, as opposed to like historically what witchcraft was.
But the thing is, I thought this was like Rosemary's Baby. I almost thought this was an advertisement for anti-Christianity, this movie.
Well, there's another layer to the point I'm trying to make, because like number one, witchcraft really wasn't connected to Satan. You know what I mean? At all. Like back in like early witchcraft. Like
no, but the Puritans and the American, the Christian people of the time absolutely thought it was.
Well, they believed it to be, and
they believed it to be, and that was the law. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? That was, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and went by the teachings of the Bible that were like, don't suffer a witch to live, like, and
And that's what I'm trying to say is that I think that the depiction of the witch was more of like this kind of like monotheistic, like Christian idea of like what witchcraft was, and as a, you know what I mean? It was like almost like this movie was told through the lens of a Christian. You know what I mean? Like their take on what they thought was going on with these witches.
But I think that was the only version back then. Therefore, that's, you know what I'm saying? That was all there was to go by. Like they didn't know about Wicca. There was no Wicca.
Well,
like,
Wicca's like Wicca didn't exist back then. But I'm talking about.
To me, old witchcraft is evil. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it is like this. This is my interpretation of old witchcraft.
Yeah, well, that's not how I see it though.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the reality is like, the guys, like the men, the Christian Puritan types, like, couldn't control like these sort of free thinking women out in the woods.
Yes, absolutely.
And they persecuted them because then they made up these stories about them being connected to Satan, and that's what I'm trying to say. This is a depiction of that sort of persecution. It's not really. Like it didn't really portray witches in like what I think to be an accurate light. You know, I mean, it's a good story. I'm not saying that, but it's sort of a twofold thing. And then the other side of that is
really
that
like to me it had the Rosemary's Baby ending. It had the Evil One ending. I thought, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I guess
cool.
The other side of that is like. A lot of the problems that, Thomasin was facing were actually due to the ignorance of her parents.
Yes, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, she had nothing to do with the kid being, killed. I mean, maybe she was negligent or maybe not. I mean, who knows? I mean, that happened so quickly that kid got snatched.
But there is so many layers and ways you could take this movie.
Yeah.
You could take this. I mean, a part of me takes this movie as a witchcraft movie, an evil witchcraft movie. Then yes, the baby was abducted by a witch and killed by a witch. Yes, a witch possessed the children. yes, that was the devil at the end, and yes, she joined an evil witch coven at the end.
Well, yeah, you can look at it that
That's
way.
one way of putting that's one approach of this movie, and that to me is like that's a great horror movie. You know, I mean that's
No, it was a good horror movie. All right,
yeah.
you know, I liked it, definitely liked it. You know, but all I'm saying is that it sort of misrepresents some things in this.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Robert Eggers' beliefs are. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think he wanted to tell a good witch story, and he did. The other side of this is you could take this as they just wanted to persecute the poor daughter, and
Definitely.
the daughter kind of lost her mind because of her fucked up parents and killed her parents at the end and lost her mind at the end, right? Isn't that another way of looking at this movie?
Well, I do think in the narrative of the movie that she did join a coven, okay, like an evil, an evil coven. But what I think is that you know how like when you're growing up, you know that certain kids out there, you know, like Ricky Casso, for example, you know, out in Long Island, probably had ignorant parents, probably had some really negative stuff go on when he was growing up, probably was alienated, and he turned to the dark side as a way to deal with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this was like sort of an allegory for young people growing up having the sort of ignorant Christian ideas forced on them.
Oh yeah.
And then their parents, you know, being so dogmatic that they can't use logic. And as a result of that, you know, Thomason, who, you know, would represent other young people.
That definitely that explains a good portion of the movie, I think.
Yeah, you know, and got turned on to the dark side. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like, I had to make the initial leap of saying that, okay, all right, I know for a fact that, you know, the persecution of witches, like in the New World or whatever you want to call it, was like really more done out of fear.
Oh yeah.
And it really had nothing to do with their connection to Satan or any of that sort of stuff. So I had to make a leap saying that, okay, I'll accept that. And by accepting that, I sort of got into this other mindset of like, okay, well, this movie is really about how ignorance can force your hand into like a darker path. You know what I'm saying?
There's a new book out that I want to get. It came out, I think, last fall, called The Witches, Salem, 1692, all about, you know, the factual witch killings and you know, things that went on. And, you know, there were no witches burned at the stake in America. They were either hung, and then one, I believe, was pressed to death.
Yeah.
And there were one or two men in that mix of people that were killed as well. It's funny though. I'm a believer in the fantastic parts of the world and life, and there's always a part of me that always was like, I bet some of those people were killed were fucking innocent and were just weird people, but maybe some of them were killed with just cause and were like these evil kind of people. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I looked at this movie. Like, I like believing in the good versus evil concept. You know what I mean? And the belief of this kind of, you know, witchcraft back then, right? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I had to make that leap. That was like the only thing I had to do in this movie.
I want to read the book. I mean, I you know, I don't have the greatest knowledge of that time, but I've always been very intrigued by that time, you know. And back in junior college, I took a course about it. So, and that was a long time ago, but it was a pretty cool course.
Actually, there's a book by Terence McKenna called Food of the Gods, which has to do with like psychedelics and the emergence of you know, humans and stuff like that. But he had a chapter about you know, the New World and the whole witchcraft phenomenon, and you know, and apparently there was like in bread yeasts, there's this, you know, argot. It's like there was something spoiled like in the yeasts, and it created this like psychedelic compound in the bread that people ate that one year. and a lot of what was going on were people were hallucinating stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I'm mangling this story right now because it just came to me. Like I read this like a few years ago in Food of the Gods. So I mean, you know, a lot of it, like I said, you know, I mean, once again, this is, you know, it's my opinion. You know, it's based on discussions and reading and whatever. But yeah, I think that a lot of that was persecution of just a male-dominated society and fear of things they didn't really understand, and maybe a little bit of hallucinations from this argot. You know?
No, totally. I mean, so much was probably going on back then, and the religious fervor was off the chain, and you had so many people being accused of things left and right, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's an ounce of truth, there's an ounce of fucking bullshit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you'll never really know, you know.
You know, and also like, you know, Christianity, you know, Puritans, they're not the most open-minded people to different
No,
ideas.
exactly. Like a girl who was having a bad day. Oh, she's
a
a
witch.
witch, kill her. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's kind of what it was like apparently back then.
Yeah, definitely. So, so I mean but you had to make that leap, you know.
Yeah,
But once I made that leap, the way I viewed the film, it was more about like alienation and growing up and being fascinated with darkness and sort of like, I mean, and both you and I can relate to that because, you know, I'm not saying, I know that both you and I have like a good relationship with our families. So it wasn't so much the ignorance in our families, but maybe it was like, you know, I grew up in like the suburbs, you know, so it's, you know, kind of small-minded people and sort of reluctance to accept different things in other people, and that sort of ignorance is what sort of drove me into that.
I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I mean, there was, you know, I had a big family, but there was a lot of issues and fights and craziness going on a lot, and things like metal music and then hardcore and punk rock music were my escape. My cat won't stop meowing. Be quiet, Doyle. Anyway, you have me yelling at Doyle on the podcast. And books about, you know, crazy dark shit were also my escape back then. And sure enough, I'm an adult and I'm still reading books about crazy dark shit. So it's something that can stay with you, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, there are people, I'm sure back then, that felt just as alienated by all the religious wackiness going on, you know, as some do now. And it's funny, one of the satanic groups out there, the Satanic Temple, who is not affiliated with the Church of Satan, thinks this was a fantastic movie, and thought it was a movie that kind of was like a pro-satanic movie. What do you think about that?
Not knowing actually knowing a little bit about the Temple of Satan, which is kind of it's perplexing to me because my investigation into them and some of my experiences with them, I don't see them as being a satanic group really. You know what I mean? I see them as like most of what they do is promote these sort of progressive ideas of inclusion,
right?
And you know, tolerance.
They got behind this movie, and they said that, you know, that they really liked it, and they liked its message and this and that.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's funny how it's, you know, it's 2016 or whatever, and once again there's several different satanic groups out there. I felt like for the longest time there was only one that people took seriously, the Church of Satan, that's been around since, you know, 1966. But there are others. Yeah,
and you know, with that said, it's like I don't that an endorsement by them doesn't really have any meaning for me, really, because it's like I don't know like where they fit into the world of the occult, really, because they're not. Right. There's nothing really occult about
I'm not
them.
sure what the pecking order is, but and some other people that really liked it. Stephen King liked it a lot. He said it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah. That was a solid horror movie for sure.
Yeah,
you know?
It had scary scenes. I actually was scared a few times. I think it was a scary movie. And I have to bring this up. One of my favorite authors is Brian Keene.
Yes.
American author. I literally own almost every single physical book the man has done. And he had he had a quote that I think was kind of funny. He was like, "The Witch is a gorgeous, thoughtful, scary horror film that 90% of the people in the theater with you, that 90% of people in the theater with you will be too stupid to understand."
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the redeeming thing with the film is that there's a lot of food for thought, and that's kind of why I really like the movie.
And I felt like that's the fit. Like there was that article that went around about this, and it follows, and it's like some certain people in the horror community that like, why can't we have nice things article. I don't know if you saw that article. But it was about all the some of the haters on It Follows and The Witch, because you had to think too much. And man, am I not with that gang. Let me tell you, man. I think these were two brilliant movies, and not without their without their flaws or whatever, but they're two horror movies that I think will be remembered for many years to come. And I think they set the standard of modern horror, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Only crazy.
I agree with that, and I actually can relate more to this movie than It Follows, because it's on a subject matter that I am interested in, and it's something I know a little bit about. I don't proclaim myself to be a master of the occult knowledge or anything like that, but
I mean, same here. There are things I know, there are things I don't know, but I mean, I just feel like there's a certain element of the horror community that is just, they go for like the bargain basement all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, shut up. I don't know. It just really is like, it angers me. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I like lowbrow horror movies too, like where it's just gore and violence. I'm into that as well. I like it all, but these are the more thoughtful ones are the ones that actually are probably some of my favorites. Like this, It Follows. And the reason why I despise the remake of Martyrs and love the original so much is because the original is a thinking man's movie.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I think these are the people that thought the Martyrs remake was great. It was really cool. It was so fucked up. Yeah. It's like, really? Come on. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. But also, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'll say this movie is definitely a movie that flies the flag of feminism, I'll say. Because it kind of is like about, in my take on it, it addresses like female persecution, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, and see, that's the thing. I'm wondering, if what the what the director's intentions were, and like, I bet you some of that was there, and of course just to tell a good scary story, right? I mean, that's got to be at the top of the list of horror movie directors' intention.
If a woman had directed and written this movie, I would think that there'd be an agenda with it, but the fact that a male wrote this, sort of. I mean, he's gotten any shit for it. I mean, at least nothing that I've read, but I don't know. It in a way, it's somewhat empowering, if. Her name is Anna Taylor-Joy, by the way, the girl who played Thomason. Yes.
And I see a nice career for her. I thought she was fantastic. Like, there's that kind of like dark, like, I mean, she wins out at the end in a way, right? You could kind of say. I mean, she emerges, as this like beautiful young witch. And that's kind of attractive to some people,
To me, it definitely is.
And female, obviously.
But that also tells a story. I mean, how many women do you know in your life that are like, they have sort of, I mean, I'm not saying they're these Puritan parents, but they come from a background where there's like, some kind of alienation and, and all this other stuff. And then they, they all hang out and listen to Typo Negative together in their, Like that's kind of like the story of so many women that I know, really. Like not exactly like what happened to Thomason. Like there's no murder or any of that other stuff, but it's like, just like these kind of weird chicks who are like, they're different. Their parents think they're brothers and sisters, say they're into Satan, whatever, and then they end up being like, you know what, I'm gonna go check out the dark side, and they just can't.
Yeah, it's like it's weird. It's a positive message if you're a certain type of person. I'll say that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If you are another type of person, well, it might not be such a positive message.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the saving grace of the film for me is that it didn't quite hit the nail on the head with some things, but it totally hit the nail on the head when it came to alienation and why people are attracted to darkness.
Yeah, and I could see an actual modern day say legit witch watching it and going, well, what were they trying to say? Like, what is like, I could kind of see that,
Yeah,
I could
totally
see some frustration for, but again, maybe, it just, I would say that reaction would vary, I mean, part of me feels like it was appropriate for, of the Christian Puritan view of its time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I'll agree with that because that is what Christians thought witches were doing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I really liked it a lot. I only watched it once. I may even, buckle down and buy it to watch it again. I'm not sure what the DVD, Blu-ray extras or anything like that are, but this is something I would definitely watch again. And maybe, look out for some other kind of, clues and moments in the movie. But I'm giving this a 5 out of 5 for me personally.
Cool. I'm going to go with 4.5 out of 5. I'm giving it not quite a 4, not quite a 5. Definitely ranked high on my scale. But yeah, it's not a 5, but definitely not a 4. So I give it a 4.5.
That's great. That sounds good to me. I mean, we definitely both enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I totally recommend it to people.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, I anticipate this man's next film, Mr. Eggers. Film we'll be discussing on the podcast is a 2016 horror film, and correct me if I'm wrong, this might be our very first PG-13 horror that we've discussed, or at least first in a long time.
I believe you're correct, Michael.
Yes, it is 10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah, it might. I'd have to just kind of check our show descriptions. I don't know if we've talked about much PG-13 horror. I don't watch much PG-13 horror. I got to be honest. Do you, Mike?
I probably avoid PG-13 horror.
Yeah.
But
well, this one also has a science fiction bent too. It's not like straight horror. But to me, I would, it's in the horror wheelhouse. Yeah. But yeah, it is the 2016 film from director Dan Trachtenberg, 10 Cloverfield Lane, with a very small cast of Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Michelle, John Goodman as Howard, and John Gallagher as Emmett. There are, I guess you hear the voice of another character, but primarily there are 3 people in this movie.
Yeah, basically there's 3 people in the movie. Yeah, I mean that's the thing that makes it sort of a horror movie is because it's kind of a kidnapping film.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like, if there were zombies in it, it would be like 100% a horror film.
Oh, yeah.
But there's like a presence that's like a sort of menace, an atmosphere of menace.
Yeah.
That kind of pervades the film.
And you don't know this cool vibe of, is there something out there? Is this guy crazy? What the fuck's going on? Like, I loved that about this movie. But let me just give a little brief rundown of it, byline. After surviving a car accident, Michelle, who is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's a great actress, by the way, wakes up to find herself in an underground bunker with two men. Howard, who's John Goodman, tells her that there's been some chemical attack and the air is unbreathable and you have to stay down there, blah, blah, blah. And the other character, John Gallagher, Emmett, is the neighbor who has also kind of made his way down there. However, John Goodman is just super controlling and sketchy. So Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michelle, kind of starts doing some investigating of her own and sees that, maybe the outside world is not as bad as what he is saying. This movie came out in March of this year. Small budget for a fairly small movie, budget of $15 million. The movie made about $110 million.
It's pretty respectable.
So it was a success, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, it in general, it had a very, very excellent reception by people. I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is, the confusion for people, and again, this has been out a while. We're going to spoil this movie, so please take note. Is its connection to Cloverfield? J.J. Abrams, who directed Cloverfield, is the producer of this film, 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is the address of the home that John Goodman lives in. What can I say? Basically, it is not a direct sequel in any way to Cloverfield. It is, I could say, what he said, kind of a cousin, kind of a, it could kind of be in that world, but it is not about a giant monster attacking, the world.
Yeah.
Not really, right?
No, I mean there's really no indication that these two stories exist in the same realm. You know what I mean?
So it's kind of annoying in a way that this is the name of the movie. Yeah. But, the film was actually made. Hold on, I have the information. It was made with a different title as they were making it.
Yeah.
And, J.J. Abrams said this is a bit of a blood relative or spiritual to the film. It's in the spirit. That's what he's.
Yeah.
So,
I have mixed feelings about that because, I didn't particularly like Cloverfield. The J.J. Abrams.
The other name, I'm sorry, Michael, was The Sinner. The movie was called The Sinner as they were making it.
That's a great name. That should have kept it. But I don't think it's like calling it 10 Cloverfield Lane was definitely a marketing ploy.
Oh, yeah.
Similar to the way the Italians would make zombie movies and
yeah.
And make you think that there were somehow sequels to like Night of the Living Dead by the title,
Right. But the thing is, this wasn't an outsider. This was a guy who was a part of Cloverfield, who was part of this movie. So it's kind of weird, like the decision, He's like, some more quotes from him to just put it into perspective. He goes, those characters and that monster from Cloverfield are not in this movie, but there are other characters and other monsters. It's like, oh God.
Yeah, so there's
because it's
they got nothing to do with each other. Is basically what he's saying.
He said he came up with the 10 Cloverfield Lane title after he finished making Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Yeah. But anyway, the thing is, apparently there's a possibility of a Cloverfield 2, but they decided against it because of movies like Godzilla and Pacific Rim, kind of, with the whole monster destruction bent, they were like, let's try, maybe we won't do a Cloverfield too.
Yeah, I mean, Cloverfield is definitely in that Godzilla Pacific Rim vibe.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a monster movie, a giant monster movie, and the thing about 10 Cloverfield Lane is that it starts off as this sort of abduction film,
Hmm.
and then like in the last like 20 minutes or so, that just shit gets crazy, and then it becomes a
Yeah, I
completely
mean,
different film.
but before we get to the end, what I liked the tension in the bunker, so to speak. They're in this house. The house is, the bunker, and John Goodman's character has prepared for this. He's got tons of food. He's got there's tons of crap down there. You could live in there for like 2 years.
Yeah,
He's definitely a bit off. And Mary Elizabeth once said there's a scene where he has her crawl through like this ventilation system, which actually I was like, that it seems like that got me very claustrophobic. But anyway, and she sees that someone wrote help with their bare nails kind of scratched, and she's basically like there's been another girl trapped. What happened to this other person that was here? But while you're watching the movie, like you don't know as the if he know what the hell is really outside. I don't know. That was like the coolest part of the movie.
yeah, but there's one thing, and this is only because of my background in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, that scene with the ductwork doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like it's like, all right, there's a duct that goes here. Then you go into this room, and then you gotta there's like another piece of.
It was quite a duct, I have to say. It was tremendous.
Yeah, and it's like, I hate when they do that in movies. It's like, all right, if you're gonna have this like technical aspect to your film, you should at least make it believable. Like there's enough people out there who understand modern ventilation that will be like, this is bullshit. You can't. This doesn't make any sense. So. Or they could have come up with a different angle for her to figure out that there was some other abducted woman that was down there before. But let's get to like who that person actually is because there's a little bit of a wrinkle in the plot because John Goodman's character Howard, he makes references to his daughter Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're led to believe that, Megan was with her mom and she didn't make it, and she loved going to, Paris or whatever. And she was like, this nice girl. But they found pictures of this woman or young girl that Howard referred to as Megan. And it turns out that Emmett's sister, he recognized the girl in the photographs as this other girl named Brittany. That his younger sister went to school with, and Brittany disappeared. So there's
the red flag.
There's an it's a serious red flag. So there's every indication that Howard abducted her, murdered her, and dissolved her in a vat of perchloric acid. So
that's pretty sick. Yeah, he has this tremendous blue barrel of acid.
Yeah. And they kind of basically, you get this feeling that Howard is a little pervy, I would say.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of that's an unsavory thing to abduct a young girl who's significantly younger than him.
Yes.
In like your subterranean cellar, murder her, and then dissolve her remains. Like that's pretty dodgy, I think. So we discover this about him. Okay. Now, the Emmett and what the hell's her name?
Michelle.
Michelle. Yeah, sorry about that. They come up, and this is another harebrained idea too. They're trying. They came up with the brilliant idea of building these biosuits that would somehow filter the air. It's like the worst. This is like the worst idea I think I've ever seen.
And they make it out of like a shower. They make it out of like stuff that would probably not survive anything out in kind of like a chemical fallout.
Yeah, there was like nothing to it. It was like duct tape, like a 55 gallon, like a 5 liter like Coke bottle, some half-ass filter system and like a shower curtain. It was like
It was like a Goonies outfit.
Yeah.
Like the Goonies would have made this.
Exactly. It was like one of the stupidest ideas I've ever seen. You know? But you know, Howard suspects that something's up. You know, he's like, oh, these, you know, I know something's awry here. I know that these guys aren't telling me the truth about everything. So Emmett actually steps in and he says that, you know, I'm trying to make a weapon or whatever, and you know, he basically takes responsibility and kind of takes the heat off of Michelle. And this is one of the most, in my opinion, this came out of this hit me, and I actually jumped when this happened.
Yeah, yes, I was very shocked.
So you're led to believe that Howard is like, you know, okay, I accept your apology. Then he like shoots the kid in the head, man.
Yeah, he just kills him. Boom.
It's boom, just like that.
Brutal scene.
It was a very brutal scene.
PG-13 movie.
Yeah, and then he proceeds to you know, indicate to Michelle there's like, you're not going to want to see this, and he opens up the, you know, his special vat of acid.
Get rid of the body. Sick. Yeah, pretty sick scene.
Yeah, definitely. And that was like, you know, dark. It was a dark scene, I thought, you know. So actually, how long do you think they were actually, how many weeks do you think went by in this little hole?
That's a cup, not a really long time. Less than a month has gone by, no?
It's hard to tell. And I think that's actually pretty effective in the movie, that like you don't really, you kind of lose track of how long they've been down there. You know,
a couple of weeks, I would say. Not like a year or anything like that. No.
Yeah. And they sort of established that it wasn't all bad, their experience down there too.
No, it was not. When Michelle was totally in the belief that there was some horrible shit out there, that something had happened, she seemed content to be there.
Yeah.
There were times when John Goodman's character, Howard, was acting very normal, and she was, well, this is what it is, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, the whole thing wasn't a big nightmare.
Yeah.
For her character.
Right. You know, they were like watching VHS tapes and, you know, making food and hanging out.
But he got really weird, and he thought that the Emmett character was trying to bang her, and he got possessive. Like, there were those, just the moments of his nuttiness would come out.
Well, that's what I mean. Like that weird tension because of the two guys and one girl sort of indicates that he was a little bit of a perv. You know what I mean? And yeah,
it happens. Yeah,
it wasn't cool. You know.
But okay, once Emmett has been you know, killed, she, you know, Michelle kind of really wants to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm trying to remember the sequence of events here, about at what point she realizes. Now does she not? She doesn't know that, oh my God, he wasn't full of shit until she's actually outside, correct?
Yeah, she still thinks that there's like toxic air outside. Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
at this point.
Yeah. So anyway, there's you know, this confrontation between her and Howard. And,
yeah. She's fighting to kill him,
with him,
but she's fighting to get out of there, and she's, you know.
Yeah, she dumps the vat of perchloric acid, and you know, he gets like, you know, starts to get dissolved by the acid, and you know, stumbles. A lamp goes over. There's a fire. Okay, so now she's forced to confront the outside world. So she runs over, puts on her half-assed biosuit, and breaks out. Like, she gets out into the world. Okay, and you know, she kind of wanders around,
and she goes into the barn.
Yeah,
and she sees the dead body of the woman who was trying to get in earlier on in the movie.
With the lesions on her face, yeah.
Yes. So again, as a viewer, you're once she's trying to get out of there, you're kind of the belief that this guy's full of shit. There's nothing out there. When she gets in the barn and she sees that dead body, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, and then you're like, well, maybe there's something to this whole like kooky.
Yes.
You know
what I first thought when that woman was there and she was banging on the door, I was thinking to myself, what if he like made like, what if that woman is in cahoots with him and she just did that to kind of make her scared? Like I was thinking that, like, because I did zero research on the movie. I was very proud of myself. I actually didn't know where the movie was going.
Me
believe it
neither.
or not.
I did the same thing. I didn't do any research. I just kind of winged it.
Yes, because I wanted to be surprised. And I was like, holy shit, John Goodman was not, he wasn't full of shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's something's not good out there. And I kind of thought it was a monster, but it wasn't a monster. It was an alien.
Well, that's when shit gets crazy, man. Because
Yes. The movie takes quite a turn once she is out of the barn.
well, her suit rips, and then
Yeah.
she discovers that there's actually nothing wrong with the air, and that she takes off her bullshit, bio helmet that she made out of fucking, a seltzer bottle or whatever the hell she used.
And as the first time viewer, you're like, well, wait a minute. Okay. So what's going to happen now?
Yeah. So then, almost on cue, she sees these like weird biomechanical arrow, ships floating in the horizon.
I think she thinks the helicopter at first, because I thought it was a helicopter too.
Yeah.
But it was not a helicopter, it was a ship.
There's alien crafts.
Yeah.
And then, let's remember, there's a fire going on in the bunker.
Yep.
There's an explosion because, the fire, probably hit some sort of, gas line or something, and the place blew up, drawing attention from these alien invaders to come and investigate. So, and this is when I saw the aliens, I was just like, get the fuck out of here. Really? Like I'm like, no, this is really how we're going with this movie.
Mm.
So yeah, now it's a science fiction film, and there's alien spaceships, who have, tried to, conquer planet Earth.
And you don't get a good look at what this kind of thing looks like, right? Like they do it in a way that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Once again, keeping the true form of the aliens somewhat obscure, so your mind sort of develops what they look like, and but they have like this kind of squid-like sort of vibe to them, or they're
tentacle kind of thing, and like suction mouth kind of thing.
Yeah, they're like these weird mollusk creatures.
You can't get a good look on what it is. Like, that's why you're thinking, oh, is it that? Wait, but you're thinking that's not the Cloverfield monster. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, well, for sure, I didn't think it was a Cloverfield monster, because that monster was just like a berserker, like smashing things. And
yeah.
And these are obviously intelligent life forms who are capable of space travel. And the Cloverfield monster came from under the ocean.
Yes, that's true.
Which still doesn't preclude that it might have been an alien origin that might have landed in the ocean or something. I mean, I'm not ruling out the possibility that a third film is going to surface that ties it all together.
Yeah, that would be kind of, I would welcome that.
Me too. I wouldn't feel as manipulated if they did that. So anyway, she's trying to escape from the aliens. She gets into a truck. She finds the keys to the truck in the dead body's jacket. And then the alien ship, these like tentacles come out and pick up this truck, and it tries to ingest her into this like weird biomechanical spacecraft organism weirdo sort of thing, and she throws a Molotov cocktail like down into.
It was again, kind of like, what was that movie, that M. Night Shyamalan movie where water killed the aliens?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Well, yeah, a small bottle of liquor killed this monstrous alien. Kind of, it was like, really? Come on,
yeah.
man.
But actually, one thing happens before the truck scene is the alien ship releases this like gas.
Yeah.
That is toxic.
Yeah, that's what made the lady die, and that's probably what made a lot of people die.
Yeah, so I mean, there is like a kernel of truth to what
Goodman was saying.
Yeah. So but he probably mistakenly thought that they polluted the entire atmosphere, but there was definitely, it was a weapon this like weaponized gas system that they use to like wipe out like probably a large portion of the population. So so that, you know, you kind of, it harkens back to like, you know, Goodman's character and like why he thought things were the way they were. And I actually believe that he believed that the air was poison, you know, as a result of that one scene. Okay. So anyway, she destroys the ship. You know, the truck falls to Earth. The truck is still drivable, oddly enough. And then
Yes. And she puts on the radio.
Yep.
Drives away, and she hears that there's the safe city, and then there's the city where they're fighting the monsters.
Yeah. So yeah, Baton Rouge, I guess, is like.
Yes, yeah. The movie takes place in Louisiana, by the way.
Yeah.
Kind of, they left that out. And is Baton Rouge where the bad place or the good place?
That's the bad place.
Yeah, Baton Rouge is the bad place, but Dallas is the safe place. And she comes across a sign where, you know, Dallas is one arrow and Baton Rouge is the other. And then in all her badassness decides to go to, to where the aliens are to fight the aliens.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the movie a lot.
Definitely.
Had a bit of its PG-13 corniness, though.
Yeah.
I guess there was no escaping. Like, I didn't like the whole, vanquishing the alien with a bottle of liquor. I don't know. I didn't like that. But there was more that I liked than disliked. I'll say that.
I definitely liked the film. There is some massive holds in the whole thing, I thought. Number one being the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning aspect of it, and
that leads to a tremendous room. Yes.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I think they just could have did it a different way. I mean, but that's just me. And then also, when the way that she interacted with the aliens, I thought was a little bit unbelievable. I mean, I know the whole thing is unbelievable, but
yeah, she was pretty okay with everything. Yeah. I'm gonna fight you. I'm fighting these aliens. Like, why is there never a reaction of, oh my God, it's happens in any of these movies?
I know.
Like, nobody's ever like completely freaked out that like it's a monster or it's an alien. Have you noticed that?
I do notice that, and was what my thinking is, that it would have been more likely that she would hide and hope that they don't find her, as opposed to trying to like throw a Molotov cocktail at the spaceship. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. It's suspension of disbelief with quite a few things.
Yeah.
But it was very entertaining, and I thought the tension between Goodman and her was great. I loved the fact that for a good chunk of the movie, I did not know what was out there. I thought that was very important to maintain, and they maintained that very well.
90% of the film I thought was great.
Yeah.
And the ending,
little corny,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if she just got out of the bunker and discovered that the air wasn't poisoned, that movie could have ended right there and it would have been perfect. For me, but then, it got a little crazy with the aliens and everything. And for me to say that is a big deal, because I love aliens, man. I love anything that's got to do with outer space or alien invasions or, ancient aliens or, anything that has to do with like that kind of stuff. I'm already there.
Like monsters,
and monsters.
Had the movie vibe too. So
yeah. But I just think they could have ended it differently. And but the strength of the first 3 acts of the film, I think, completely won me over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think the acting was great. I think John Goodman killed it.
John Goodman is like one of the most underrated actors in the planet. I think. Like,
definitely, man. Like he's
very good in, and he's usually the standout in. But the man wins no awards, gets no accolades.
Yeah. I mean, just look at his body of work, man. Do yourself a favor and look at his IMDb, man, and go through his body of work. And he's like the real deal, man. Like, he's been in so many great movies.
Totally, man.
He played Fred Flintstone,
No, but I just think his everyman persona doesn't ever come off as fake or contrived, and it's winning. You know what I mean? It's very like, everybody likes him, and to see him do this kind of dark turn,
Yeah.
great.
He plays crazy really good in this film, and that's
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a different role for him too, because he's usually more of a likable character.
Yeah. Now I could see him literally in a serial killer movie. Like
Absolutely.
A killer. Like I could see it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was in Red State, that Kevin Smith film.
No, he was cool in that too.
He was great in that movie. All the Coen Brothers movies he did.
Mm-hmm.
He's just an excellent actor, man, and I'm a fan of his. And that's his involvement in this film was actually what made me interested in watching it. Because like I said, the Cloverfield film, the first found footage movie, didn't really do anything for me when I saw it. I saw it.
And Mary Elizabeth Winstead is very good. She was great in The Thing.
Yeah.
And she's another one. I think she's going to be like a go-to girl when it comes to like these kind of like not necessarily final girls, but like these kind of strong characters in either horror, sci-fi genre kind of movies.
Yeah. Yeah, she was good in the movie. But going back to The Thing, man, I don't agree with her addition to that that whole storyline, man. Honestly, it's the thing that made the original so cool is that there was it was an all male cast, and it just had that brooding like vibe to it, of like a bunch of guys like stuck out here in the middle of nowhere in this like, frozen ass place.
Kind of like how The Descent was the all-female cast.
Yeah, exactly.
If they threw some dudes in that mix, it might not have been as interesting.
Totally, because actually, it really, you're right about that. I don't think it would have worked as well.
It's now I have it in my head. I want to watch that again. I haven't watched it in a while.
Yeah, I got that on DVD in the other room.
Oh yeah, I definitely we both own that one. Yeah. So out of a 5, I'm actually giving Cloverfield. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5, which is a great score.
I'm gonna go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Sorry to mean to cut you off.
I'm giving it a 4 out of 5, which I think is a great score. I really enjoyed the movie a lot. Not a perfect film. Not something I would maybe necessarily own, but I did enjoy it. And if it came on, say cable or whatever, I'd watch it again.
I'm going to go with the same exact score, actually. 4 out of 5. Once again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love John Candy. I love John Goodman. Couple of holds in it really is what kind of diminished it a little bit in my eyes, and the ending I thought was a little too corny for my tastes.
Cool.
And I'm very accepting. Once again, I'm very accepting of the injection of aliens into movies. So for me to say that is like a pretty big statement, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I dug it though. Still in all, I really liked it.
Final film of the podcast is the Jim Van Bebber documentary Diary of a Deadbeat, which came out on Blu-ray, DVD. I think in April or May, Mike, of this year.
Yes, it was the Blu-ray.
The movie itself, the brunt of it was made. It looked like around 2010. A lot of these interviews.
Yeah, it was.
There had conventions a lot throughout the documentary, and it's all from several years ago, and the interviews are several years old. But I mean, it's a very independent film, so sometimes it takes a little while to actually get the damn thing out, the physical copies out. So I commend the director Victor Bonacore, who put this film out. It kind of covers 2010 to 2015, basically, is where is where a lot of this the footage of the documentary comes from. But Jim Van Bebber is someone Mike and I have talked about quite a bit in the past 2 years of the Necromaniacs podcast. And we ultimately decided against an entire, 90-minute podcast about him, and decided to kind of focus on this particular documentary because it gives a very good picture of his career and of the man himself. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. Just a little background on Van Bebber is that he's a native of Greenville, Ohio, and he attended the Wright State University and studied cinema. And around that time, he didn't finish college, and instead he decided to found or co-found an independent film company called Asmodeus Productions. And in addition to his, I would say, pretty prolific filmography, he's directed a bunch of different videos for bands like, Pantera.
Yeah, well, the thing is, as he was growing up, as a child and as a teenager, he made dozens and dozens of small films. They're not all, I don't believe they're all cataloged in IMDb, but the director of this documentary is now in possession of all these small films. His full-length films, though, it's worth mentioning, are technically, there's only two of them. There's Deadbeat at Dawn, which was released in 1988, which is a movie that he, wrote, directed, produced, and starred in. And then his, what really kind of put him on the map is The Manson Family, which was released in 2003.
And that took like 10 years
to
theaters
complete. In Manhattan, which was unbelievable. He was there, and it was fantastic. So Manson Family is a highly recommended movie about the Manson murders and Charles Manson. Everyone listening to this podcast needs to see that movie. But he's done a bunch of music videos, and he's done other short films that have made the rounds. Doper from 1994, My Sweet Satan from 1994, Roadkill, one called Kata. And then most recently, on the Blu-ray release of The Manson Family, is a short of Gator Green, which is something that he is, I believe, still pursuing to get made into a feature-length film. So he is prolific in one sense, yet not as prolific in another, for reasons that we will get to.
Yeah. But I mean, also to make a full-length film is a huge undertaking, especially when you basically don't have any money.
Yeah. I mean, this is a man who has operated his entire life. He's in his 50s now, outside of Hollywood. His entire existence of making films and being in the film world outside of Hollywood, outside of even indie Hollywood. Let's be honest. I mean, he is a true, when you say independent filmmaker, this is as independent as it gets.
Yeah, definitely.
But he has demons. He struggles with severe alcoholism, and it is documented in this documentary, Diary of a Deadbeat, which is named after his first feature film, Deadbeat at Dawn. A play on that title.
Yeah, the movie starts off like really dark, man, because it shows him at some horror convention somewhere, and he's obviously,
I think it's at the Cinema Wasteland one, which is a very popular one in the Midwest.
Yeah, he's obviously inebriated, like drunk to the point of like making sort of a spectacle out of himself. You know what I mean? And it was
it's several points in the documentary.
Yeah, but it opens up like that, and you're just like, oh man, I hope the whole thing doesn't just focus on this.
It's interesting how, I mean, obviously he signed off on this, and it came out, and it's out there. I don't know how many people would want that much of that in a documentary about themselves. You know, that's what I was thinking about as I was watching it.
Yeah, but also that is a testament to him, man, and just being like, hey, this is where I'm at that particular time. Because the one of the more painful things was, number one, being a huge fan of his for a really long time. I have tons of video footage of interviews with him, and when he was making the Manson film and earlier films, like he was like this strong, like vital guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, he partied, he'd smoke weed.
He was in excellent shape.
He was in great physical shape too, man.
Yeah.
And then he was like diminished, man. And I was like, oh God, this is like the worst, man. But then later in the film, it's almost like he got his shit together again.
Yes, there is thankfully a comeback of sorts. Thank God. I mean, he found success with Deadbeat at Dawn. It was a big video hit. I remember hearing about it. It took me a very long time to actually see it, but I do remember hearing about it. What I really first heard about in the very late 80s, early 90s was the Manson family, which was called Charlie's Family for a very long time, if you remember, Mike.
Yep, I do remember that.
I feel like this thing was in horror magazines well prior, a decade before it actually came out, which it was. He started working on it in the late 80s, and it finally came out in 2003. That's how long it took to actually get the Manson family out. And then he obviously changed the name from Charlie's Family to the Manson Family, a better title, if you ask me.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Roger Ebert reviewed the Manson family and gave it a good review before he died, obviously.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bummer because I remember around that time seeing it in the theater, and then that following year, I think I actually got the DVD at some time in 2004. And I was just I'd always just be kind of thinking, well, he's got to have a new movie coming soon. And it just didn't happen. I always thought that was such a bummer,
I mean, Van Bebber is clearly a talented filmmaker, man. I mean, if you think, just go and watch the Manson family, and no one in that film is an actual actor.
Yes, they were all his friends.
They're all people he knew. There's a couple strippers in there, I think, that they got to play at some of because there's a lot of nudity in the film.
Maybe some who had some acting, some acting aspirations or took some acting courses, you know what I'm saying? But the majority of the movie, yes, was made by friends. Yeah.
And it still completely has it's a coherent narrative. And you never once really see anyone fail as an actor in that film, even though they're limited experience in that field. And that's like a true testament to him as a director, I think, that he was able to get these performances out of these people. And, and the fact that it took him so long to finish it and that he never lost sight of that is like really inspiring to me, man. Like just a guy who just won't give up is like, just totally devoted to what he's doing, to a fault. You know what I mean? It's like, a triumph on one hand, but then it's like, well, what was the consequences of having such a single-minded vision? How did his life suffer? Because, that movie came and went, really. I mean, there was the fans, the people. I mean, he has fans like throughout the world, probably.
Yeah, he really does. But like more than you would think, actually.
Yeah. But like he's not a household name by any stretch of the imagination. Even in the independent filmmaking world, he's still a renegade artist in that field. In like a field filled with other renegades, he's an even deeper renegade. And that's really the saddest thing. Is that a guy like that has obstacles put in front of him. That some of them he put there himself, granted, yet some talentless motherfucker like Rob Zombie gets to make films every year.
He's not a talentless.
Oh, dude, he can't write for shit, bro. I
wouldn't say he's talentless.
Well, all right, I'll give Rob Zombie a nod, and I'll say like he can direct.
He's a great director.
He needs to stay away from writing, though, man. His writing is fucking terrible. Dude.
I'll say this: if another movie comes out and it's Rob Zombie directing with a new writer, you won't hear me complain. Okay, I'll say
Yeah,
that.
I mean, he does have another film coming out, but he wrote and directed it.
Yeah, and it looks cool, but it looks just like his other movies. So we'll see what happens with 31.
Yeah, but I mean, but
to
compared
backtrack a little bit more about this particular documentary, I found an interview with the director, Victor Bonacore, and it says that he started talking to Jim in 2009 when he acquired his 8mm films that he made from ages 11 to 17. There are 25 of them. Wow.
Yeah.
Ranging from 3 minutes up to 45 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And he also, around this time, there's one called White Trash, which is like a precursor to Deadbeat at Dawn. And apparently a bunch of these are going to be collected and released through Masker Video, the company that put out this documentary. So that's coming at some point, according to this interview from this year.
I'm in. I want it. I'm definitely going to buy it. I'll pre-order that shit.
Yeah, you see some of them in the documentary. I mean, you don't see the whole thing of any of them, though. But one of the things this documentary covers is something that I never really paid attention to, was the amount of films he is in the last, say, 5 to 7 years. There's quite a few of them, actually, as an actor.
And he does a great job as acting, too, man, honestly.
Underground films, they're called. Actually, from more than 5, 7 years ago, from maybe the last 10 years. But he did a lot of that. And he's also... he has a hand in this new movie that's kind of like an August Underground-y kind of movie. The name is escaping me. He's in one of those too. It's like one of those real over-the-top, disgusting ones.
Okay.
It's on his IMDb page, but this guy was like a Van Bebber super fan.
Yeah, it's like I guess Jim.
He's a true American.
I guess Van Bebber got into acting
with a story that deserves.
I guess Van Bebber got into acting because he actually can get paid to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he can. It's a gig.
One of the most insane parts of the documentary, which is a scene in the first film, Deadbeat at Dawn, is when he jumps off that bridge into like that river.
Oh yeah.
Up the side of a fucking highway.
Yeah, and he did that.
He actually
himself.
did that.
Yeah.
Like no safety, no safety, nothing, no stuntman. It was him, Mike. It's a crazy scene in the movie, and knowing that he just up and did it for the movie, totally could have died doing that one time. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, he was jumping off of dams.
Yes,
he was like throwing round kicks.
Wall of a building.
Yeah, he was like doing martial arts, like doing nunchucks. He did everything, all the fight scenes.
In the movie.
Yeah, he like coordinated all the fight scenes. He was like, in acting. He was the star of Deadbeat at Dawn. Mm-hmm. He was the star of the Manson family too. Basically. Yeah, it's like I'm baffled as to why. I mean, I'm not really baffled because I imagine Jim.
Here's the thing. I'll be blunt and honest. He is his own worst enemy. If there's a textbook definition of own worst enemy, it is unfortunately this man, and it sucks because he is so talented.
Well, all right, Abel Ferrara, okay, arguably could be considered another person who is his own worst enemy.
Yes.
However, Abel Ferrara actually has had a career.
Yes, and has made over a dozen films.
Yeah.
So
and those films, some of them were Hollywood films.
System, out of the system, exactly.
And
worked with some big actors.
Yeah. Lawrence
has
Fishburne.
been able to carve out quite a career.
Yeah.
I can't say that Van Bebber has carved out quite a career. I don't know if that's an accurate statement. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No.
He's carved out a great underground story but his career needs to be bigger and should be bigger. And due to his own kind of like demons, it isn't. And that's why I don't like even, X Studio, whatever, wants to take a gamble on something like that. And that kind of sucks,
Well, yeah, I mean, this Gator Green film,
Mm-hmm.
what the one positive thing is at the end of the movie, you see him coherent and
Yeah.
he's focused, he's putting it together, and he's like the Jim Van Bebber that I remember from interviews.
Right. Oh, totally. Yeah, he looks great at the end of the film.
Yeah, so I mean that's encouraging, but the film still isn't finished, and and who knows if it ever will get finished.
It has like bummer moments. I mean, something of note though. There's a lot, talking heads in the movie. There's people in the horror community, including William Hellfire, the director. Of Upside Down Cross. Did you notice this one woman, Heidi Honeycutt? She dropped the N-bomb like about 5 times.
Yep.
Did you notice that?
I was like, wow, that's pretty bold, man.
Yeah, this white girl, this kind of gothy looking white chick, dropping N-bombs about 5 times in the documentary. I thought that was kind of weird. No,
That was definitely weird, man.
I made a note that mentioned that in this podcast. Really, Heidi Honeycutt. Really, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, what he himself is a man with no filter and straight shooter kind of guy. And like I said, I enjoyed the documentary, but it was a bit of a bummer, because you see the potential, what I'm saying, for a lot more greatness, He's done great. He's done some great things. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan. I'm a super fan. But there should be way more fully realized films under his belt. Do you think so?
Oh, 1,000%, man. I mean, I'm a long time supporter of this motherfucker, man. It's like, I mean, I found out about Jim Van Bebber, I think, I want to say that Chaz Ballin zine, Deep Red.
It's for me, it was reading probably either Gore Zone or Fangoria in the very late 80s or early 90s. That is how I learned of Jim Van Bebber.
Yeah. I read about him. I'm pretty sure it was in that Chaz Ballin Deep Red. And then it was back in the VHS days.
Yeah.
And there was like that, what the hell is it called? There was this like weird, sketchy VHS cassette mail order place, like Miami something or other. It's like,
no,
you know what I'm talking about? It's like the whatever Miami fucking catalog or whatever. But it was like basically they were a bootlegger. They would take like laser discs and then dub them onto VHSs, and they would send it to you just with like a label on it that says like Guinea Pig 1 or whatever you like Men Behind the Sun or something. These are all films I ordered from them, by the way. And and I ordered Deadbeat at Dawn on VHS, and it's just because I remember reading about this thing, and I'm just being, this guy sounds like a total badass. Like he's directed it, he wrote it, he made it. It's like a action film, post-apocalyptic like kind of thing with like he's doing like martial arts in it and stuff. And I was just like,
oh yeah,
this is like totally my kind of movie. So it's like in the realm of like the New Barbarians or something like that, or like the Escape from New York or something like kind of. And ever since I got that VHS tape, I was like, man, I'm totally in, great lines in it. There's like awesome scenes. And ever since then, I've just been a big supporter of what he's been doing, man. And like his short films. And then like I have all that stuff on multiple formats right now,
awesome.
Not those 25 shorts.
One of the better ones is the one that he based on the Ricky Queso story, My Sweet Satan, about the Long Island, quote unquote satanic murder case. That's a cool one. And, he did a video for Pantera, for Skinny Puppy, Superjoint Ritual, and the death metal band Necrophagia. I mean, done definitely some cool stuff.
Yeah, And if you watch all these films, you'll see a lot of familiar faces pop up. You know, you see a lot of the same guys, same people that show up in all these movies. You know what I mean?
Well, and as for the documentary itself, Phil Anselmo is in it. And there's some characters in the documentary. Some of the talking heads are very interesting, weird people.
Yeah.
One of my earliest recollections also of Jim Van Bebber was seeing early photographs of Charlie's family in the horror mags, and I was like, what the fuck? It looked so violent and crazy, and some of the images of the guy playing Charles Manson, pretty sick.
Yeah, it was pretty dead on, man, I thought. Like, because, also, as well as being a huge Van Bebber fan, I'm also a bit of a Charles Manson.
Yes, me too. You probably more than me, but I'm a pretty big fan too. So yeah.
And I've got like all the documentaries, which I probably bought from that Video Club of Miami or whatever it's called. It's like, all the documentaries. There's all these like, books. It seems like almost there's a cottage industry every year. Like a new Manson book comes out, but a lot of the scenes. I
mean, even the actual Helter Skelter book is still a great book.
Yeah, a lot of the scenes,
some mistruths in it, but there's some great stuff in it too.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is not true, but but the some of the scenes in the Manson family, film that Jim did, definitely you can connect it to like all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's a very well informed, sort of like docudrama or whatever you want to call it, and also the thing I like about it, and which he talks about, is that he doesn't try to romanticize like the Manson experience.
Oh no, not at all.
And as a matter of fact, the additional footage they shot later on, which kind of addresses, how people in the 90s especially seem to be like, in the 80s and the 90s, Manson was like, people were like, wearing T-shirts, and all these bands were, using imagery and stuff.
Didn't he say in the documentary that he himself is not like a Manson worshiper? Like, he's not like the biggest fan, which was almost surprising, actually.
Yeah.
To hear him say that.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between, I'm not a fan of Charles Manson.
No, but you know what I mean.
But I'm fascinated by,
like, he doesn't know, like, I don't know if that's the word he used, but he kind of made it seem like he doesn't base his life around it, and he's not like,
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if it's in this documentary, but in one of the documentaries that are part of the package you get with the Manson family, he addresses that, and that's cool, man. Like I can relate to that because, I went through different phases of my life when I was younger, where it's like, well, I have all the records and everything, and spoken word stuff and whatever, but it's like, you end up realizing that these aren't good people. You know what I mean? They're not cool people. They're criminals. They're probably the worst people.
Crazy, or at least we think he's crazy, unless he's just brilliant to be alive all these years and have all these people go out and do killings for him. I mean, there's an argument that could say that he's crazy, and an argument that could say, no, he's actually not crazy at all. But he's probably a little bit of both. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting. Let's put it this way: he's definitely part of our history in America.
Yeah,
he's an American historical figure. The same way like Jesse James is, the same way that Al Capone is a character.
Al Capone, absolutely, totally. So, and he's a precursor to all the serial killers and like that whole kind of culture. Like, he kind of kicked off that whole kind of interest in murderers and criminals and things like that, true crime.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what I always reflect on this. Remember back in the 90s how popular serial killers were? Like how like
Oh yeah.
Like that, it seemed like everyone was like reading books about serial murder, and there was like tons of movies.
The thing is, up until I would say the very early 90s, there was a lot of serial killing going on. And that's why there was a lot of bad shit happening. And there was a lot of books to go around, a lot of stories to be told. And then this is in my opinion, as police work And as police technology got better and better, you saw a decrease in serial killers and in serial killing. And today it's almost like something non-existent, actually. Like if it's happening, it must be happening on some really kind of small level, because a string of beautiful girls getting killed, no, it's just not happening. You know what I mean? Like that makes it to the news, that is like a story, that all these kind of serial killers have these stories because of things like DNA and technology. I feel like it's harder to even to be a serial killer, to create a serial killer. Like if you're a serial killer, the most recent thing I can recall was a couple of years back on Long Island, was they found all those dead prostitute bodies on a beach. Mm-hmm. And they never found that killer.
Yeah.
And the key to me was that they were all prostitutes, therefore expendable, therefore not everybody's looking for them. You know what I mean? Like things like that.
Well, that I find it hard to believe that. I think serial murder is not. It's just not in the media anymore, really. Mm-hmm. That the media is more concerned with, like,
Right, but
shooters.
Believe me, if there was a story, I got a feeling it would be. I mean, if it was an interesting story, say 10 dead blonde 17-year-olds were found. I mean, come on, like you'd hear about it, dude.
Yeah. Well, we did. You did hear about it in Long Island.
Right.
But
the key to that story, I remember, was that they were all prostitutes, and they fucking never found out who did that. So that's interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, for what it's worth, like the people that are more vulnerable to getting serial murdered are people like the expendable people in society like that.
Yeah.
So they don't
like John Wayne Gacy. I mean, he was picking off boys from homes in the damn neighborhood. Like he was like crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the serial killers of back then, it was just like a whole other level, I feel like, of nuttiness and depravity. And it would go undetected. You could go like years. Like it was crazy because of bad police work and bad technology. And you know what I'm saying? It's just the times caught up with it, I feel like,
with like the big rage now.
And cameras, there were no cameras everywhere back then.
But like the big rage in murder these days though is like, anything that's related to Homeland Security gets press.
Right. Like
anything
terrorism is the biggest problem. Terrorism is the big news getter. It's unfortunately,
Yeah, terrorism and shooters have sort of
exactly
replaced the serial
like mass
killer.
shootings and terrorism. That's the new kind of like fucked up thing,
Yeah, like this point in history will be known, like the same way we're talking about like the 90s and serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
Like in 10 years or 20 years, that's when people are going to be talking about, oh yeah, man,
they'll talk about
terrorism was really big, and everyone was like talking about terrorists and like, mass shooters,
Right. Unless ISIS has killed all of us in the next 20 years, but who knows?
What a bummer that's the name of this that was given to this terrorist organization.
ISIS was a character in the 70s on Shazam. I mean, Jesus Christ. ISIS. Yeah. She was a female superhero, for God's sake.
Yeah, she's this goddess,
Yeah.
There's the band ISIS, which
lame.
They're those guys like
fucking A. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, ISIS the band was a very popular, they're pretty big, post-metal, like whatever you want to call them, band.
Yeah, that's right. That poor friggin' band. God.
Yeah. So
they couldn't even do a show if they wanted.
They couldn't do a reunion.
Can't do it.
As a matter of fact, you can't even wear a T-shirt probably because I have
wear it. Keep it in the drawer.
Yeah, I got like a hoodie.
I'd in the drawer if I was a fan.
I have an ISIS hoodie it's a black hoodie and it says ISIS on the front in red, right? And I remember like a year ago I was wearing that.
No.
Because I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, yeah, it's the band, and people were looking at me weird. And I was like, oh, shit. When I got home, like, why the fuck? What's up with this? And I'm like, oh, yeah. It's the fucking... People don't know about the band. They're just thinking about the terrorist organization.
I totally forgot all about the probably vast number of T-shirts they made in their existence as a band.
Oh, yeah.
and where they are, those shirts. Wow,
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, you know, I've toured with those guys many
Yeah.
times, and I have tons of their merchandise, you know, and like all their records and everything. I mean, the records are what they are, you know what I mean?
I believe the records are. I believe you could get their records on. I mean, on
Yeah.
iTunes. I think you can.
No,
I
you
don't
can.
think-
Yeah, no, their records are impressed because it's
Yeah, yeah.
you know, Ipecac put out their last few records, so
Right,
that stuff's you know, and yeah, it's a what a fucking
Yeah, it's the
unlucky-
world. But the Manson family, I think kicked that whole shit off, and you know, it's funny. I always felt that like Jeffrey Dahmer was the last serial killer, was the last big name. I felt like, although there was that what's his name, BTK guy. He's of the modern, the last 10 years or whatever, but I feel like the last big celebrity killer was probably Jeffrey Dahmer.
You know what, man? I'm gonna say that I guarantee you in Russia, the former USSR, there are some serial killing motherfuckers out there.
There might be. Oh yeah,
Definitely.
Other countries, other places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically Russia. Specifically like.
But I mean, yeah, this brought us
Chechnya.
off on a tangent.
Yeah.
But again, you know, as far as the documentary itself, I did enjoy it. I liked it. But I wanted a little more I think I wanted a little more from the man himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe it was too much drunkenness and too much kind of rambling.